Hi, I'm Liron Cohen.
And I'm Mimi Torchin.
And you're listening to Lady Parts TV, the podcast.
Whee!
Hello, everybody.
Hi there.
This is the third podcast in a week.
Oh my God, I'm exhausted.
And we did a lesbian movie club.
Oh my God.
So you
it's
should.
a shame we're not getting paid for this.
You should catch up on all of that stuff. We're getting paid in love.
Okay.
Ah, yes. And free movies.
Free movies. No, that's a lot.
Hello, everybody. I hope you're being safe and sane. And we're going to start with our stats. We tallied 20 primetime shows.
Whew.
You can tell some of our shows are back. Out of which, written or co-written by women, 10.
Excellent.
A whopping 50%.
But then...
Directed, 3, which is a measly 15%.
That reminded me of the weakest link.
I know.
Out of $100,000, you managed to accumulate a measly $7,500.
You're the weakest link.
You're all the weakest link.
So unfortunately, all of our favorite shows came back only to leave us again.
Yes, what the fuck?
They're going away until
For
January, but it was good while it lasted. Anyway, we have
It's
5...
one of the reasons I dislike the holidays, because
I know.
we just have crap to watch.
I know. Well, no, we have lots of things to catch up on, including The Crown.
Oh, The Crown, not crap.
Not crap. So we have 5 movies to tell you about, and what I love about this time of year, in addition to all the big movies that are coming out, is that we get to see a lot of really, really good small movies that otherwise we would not have seen if we hadn't been sent these movies specifically.
Absolutely. Because first of all, I don't know if we discussed this last week, our last podcast, there are no art houses left in
Even
America.
in New York City.
Yeah.
Which is such a shonda, really.
There is one
little.
on 13th Street.
Yeah,
I forget what
but
it's
that's
called.
not
The Forum,
enough.
Film Forum, I think. But there's a couple down in the Village. But really, nothing accessible, nothing great.
Which is why I'm so happy that, if nothing else, maybe this pandemic will make more movies open virtually so that more people have access to these films, people in places
Especially these small films.
Yeah. Anyway, these are 5 really, really good films, and I don't know if you would have even heard of them if we hadn't told you about them. So here we go.
Here we go.
And here's our favorite one.
Absolute favorite. I adored this movie. I adored it from beginning to end. It's called The Grizzlies. It's available now on demand. It's directed by Miranda de Pensier, written by Graham Yost and Moira Wally Beckett.
There, we got through that.
Yeah,
Whew.
and it's starring the seemingly ubiquitous Ben Schnetzer. Stephen, his father, must be very proud. And he's so good in this as opposed to The Giant, which I could barely even see him in, which was the last thing we reviewed with him. Will Sasso, Tantu Cardinal, and a bunch of fabulous kids, teenage kids. It's based on a true story. It's about a group of Inuit youth and their town in a small Arctic town, and they suffer from, I think, the highest.
One of the highest
One
in
of
the
the
world.
highest suicide rates, teenage suicide rates in the world. And we do witness a couple of kids who just, their lives are all drinking and partying and
partying. It's partying to try to forget about their lives.
They sit in front of a convenience store or whatever, and they, I mean, it is a story of kids all over small towns in America and reservations,
but especially Native communities.
Native
and
communities.
this is the Arctic.
The Arctic.
There's very little to do there.
In July, there was so much snow around, but we kept saying, "Look, grass!" That's because it's July. Anyway, everybody is just fantastic, and this white teacher comes to teach at their school. He has a year contract, and he's very gung ho and
ignorant about their
culture. But of course, he's willing to learn. But
he's these
kids don't care about school except for a couple of the girls.
Well, not only do they not care about school, a lot of the parents consider it the white man's school, and they don't want them to go astray and forget about their culture.
And some of them, they're so poor that things cost so much. He goes to the little grocery store and he gets 12 things, and it's $300 and something.
Yeah, like a bag of chips is $16.
So one of the lead characters, he's a great hunter, and he has to go and provide for his family.
Right, and there's high levels of alcoholism and domestic violence, and
their parents in the families. It's a very sad life.
It started off actually very depressing,
grim, very
depressing.
grim. But then as it
This
turns
genre.
out, this genre, which I was just telling Leron the other day that I have always liked, it's redemption by sport, or by some sort of
group effort.
A group effort that brings these kids together and teaches them the value of life, the value of teamwork.
Gives them hope.
And this is, in this movie, lacrosse.
This is Canadian.
And
we love our Canadians, don't we?
You know, of course, there's resistance, but then there isn't. And it's a very wonderful story. It's
very uplifting.
Very uplifting.
And it's so well directed.
Everything about this film is wonderful.
Yeah.
And Ben Schnitzer was just fabulous. All the kids are great. And I've always adored Tantu Cardinal.
Yes.
Or Cardinal. I always call her Cardinal. I don't know why. And Will Sasso is wonderful. Anyway, see it. I can't possibly recommend it more highly.
Yes, it's funny because this weekend we're watching another one of these type movies. This one is Ben Affleck's movie.
Yes, we'll see how it holds up against this.
We'll let you know next week. So this is, again, The Grizzlies.
The Grizzlies.
It's available on demand right now. Okay, so The Grizzlies started off very grim, but ended up very uplifting. The next movie we'll tell you about started off very grim and ended up being grimmer.
Oh, my God.
But excellent.
Fabulous.
You just have to be willing to go on this journey. You have to know in advance that it's not going to be a fun ride.
You've got to be willing to suffer for its art.
Right. It's called Beanpole. It's a Russian movie. It's available right now on kinonow.com, which it used to be Kino Marquee. I guess they changed it. So Kino, Kino now.com, but you can also just Google it and you'll find it. Directed by, now I'm really going to suffer. Directed by Kantemir Balagov.
That's not hard.
No, but starring Victoria Miroshnichenko and Vasilisa Pereligina.
And I think this is Victoria's first film.
I think so too.
To IMDb.
They were both.
Oh my God.
Now there were other actors, but it's really about the two of them, and it's actually kind of slightly a lesbian movie, even though it doesn't say so in any of the reviews or the synopses. I don't know if it's because coming out of Russia, it's not necessarily what you would want to have in the synopsis. You would prefer maybe for people to not realize the subtext or be happily ignorant about it. But everybody kind of just treated them as friends, and we saw more than that in there. And we would be interested to hear from you what you saw.
They became friends on the front.
Right. So this is right after World War II in Leningrad. These two women, Iya and Masha. Iya being extremely tall, which is why she's called Beanpole. They bonded during the war.
They were both
anti-aircraft gunners. That's anyway one of the versions of the story that we hear. Iya takes Masha's baby back home with her.
She has a baby on the front.
Right, while she stays in the war for a little while. Iya has this interesting kind of condition where she freezes. She kind of goes into these catatonic states, and it's from trauma, we assume. So at some point it becomes impossible for her to stay there. So she takes the baby, she goes home, and Masha stays. And then we catch up with them a little bit right before Masha comes back from the war. And... There's a terrible tragedy that happens that bonds them even further, but complicates their relationship. And this is also Iya works, and then Masha also works at a hospital for shell-shocked soldiers. It's just. First of all, let me tell you that it's stunning to look at.
It's gorgeous. It's just like a painting every frame.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely breathtaking.
The color palette.
And the story, just that the way that it captures this film, the wounds of war, mostly emotionally. Yes, mostly emotional, I say, but also in this very specific place, in this very specific time in history, the divide between the poor and, of course, the rich. It's kind of slow. It takes its time, but it's very hypnotic. And I don't have much patience for slow. Mimi does, but it was so engrossing that I went along with it because
we wanted to know where it was going.
Well, and also because the slowness, some movies you see that it's just about, all right, it's kind of like the director.
Self-indulgent.
Yeah, it is self-indulgent. In this, every moment of silence was pregnant, like a pregnant sign. It was all, it was filled with so much gravity that I didn't mind it. And it was haunting.
It was actually necessary to the texture of the film.
Exactly.
Really.
It was haunting. It was excellent. Again, know in advance that you're going to go see
watch
something.
it when you're depressed.
Yeah, it's very sad, but it's also very, very excellent.
Beautiful and well made.
So it's called Beanpole, kinonow.com. Highly recommend it.
Okay, so Antigone, and not the Antigone you might expect, but the Antigone based on Sophocles' Antigone, available now on Lamel Virtual Cinema at watch.laemmle.com. Directed and written by a woman, Sophie Daraspe.
We'll just tell you about the main the lead actress, because I don't know that you'll know anybody else, but the lead, who is a newcomer, is absolutely
Naomi Ricci.
Yes, she is. Watch out for her.
Amazing, and I think also she doesn't have.
She's a newcomer.
Yeah, newcomer. And how she has updated it is, Antigone is an Algerian-born teenager living in Montreal. With, of course, she has 2 brothers and
a sister and
a grandmother. I believe their parents died. And her oldest brother, who's a lovely boy, although there are things about him you don't know, is shot by policemen. Ever heard of that story?
Yeah. Apparently it happens in Canada, too. Who knew?
And during the shooting, her other brother, the one who I think is younger, pushes one of the cops and he gets arrested. And he's a troubled boy. He has a record, I think, already. So if he's convicted again, he faces deportation to a place. We think it's...
Well, we thought it was Lebanon, but they said it was Algerian. So
I don't know. Wherever it is, it's politically
dangerous for
him to go back.
Especially because the parents were murdered there, and I don't know if it was a political killing. We don't know, but we're meant to believe they were just about to run. I mean, the whole family was about to leave, and they were killed before they left. So I think that as a family, they should.
Yes, they're probably political.
Enemies.
Enemies, yes. And Antigone devises a plot to help him escape. It's very daring, and therein hangs the tale. She is amazing. It talks about so many themes, immigration.
What's fascinating is Antigone is, an ancient Greek tragedy.
Yes, but they've made it totally...
That's what I love. It's, every time we've heard Antigone, they made it in the...
original,
exactly.
Although there might, a lot of people adapt.
Maybe, but not on this grand scheme, I don't think. She managed to adapt it and make it so relevant.
So relevant in so many ways.
They even kept the names, all the names of the characters are the same names as the original Greek play, but they just made it into a completely...
Yes, it uses social media.
Yeah.
And of course the explosive immigration question, which is... tragic all over the world, not the least in our country. Anyway, it was Canada's entry for the Oscars for 2020. It won Best Canadian Feature from the Toronto International Film Festival. The lead actress is fantastic, but they're all good. Everybody is good.
But she blew my mind.
Oh, she was so
good.
Fantastic. Her power, my God. And again, it's something that we we recommend highly.
Yes, I think this is we're recommending everything that we're talking about today.
Yeah.
I really, really loved it. It was very powerful, and I didn't know what to expect.
Beautifully made.
Yeah.
Very raw.
And it managed to touch on a lot of current
topics,
issues
yes.
that are very hot topics in, social justice, social injustice.
Yes, and we're seeing the things that happen in this film happening in our lives today.
Yeah. So this is Antigone. It's not all bad, by the way. There are very powerful, uplifting moments in this that are, again, it's part of the story of how they deal with it and how how the people around them come to deal with it.
Antigone is a Greek tragedy. It's not a comedy, but
That's right.
But it's also not grim.
Right. So Antigone, available now on Lamel Virtual Cinema at watch.laemmle.com. And now we have a couple of documentaries to tell you about. We're going to start with a documentary called Born to Be. It is available online right now, directed by Tanya Cipriano. And it's all about something that happens in our city, and we didn't know about it.
Yes.
Well, I guess...
Our city, everything happens in our city.
That's true.
New York City.
This is about Dr. Jess Ting, who is a plastic surgeon. He started out as just a regular garden variety plastic surgeon, pretty well renowned, making good bucks, I'm sure. But he was lacking meaning. And one day, patients started coming to him seeking gender-affirming surgery, and apparently everybody else said no to them, and he said yes. And he became the lead plastic surgeon for transgender and non-binary people.
At Mount Sinai.
At Mount Sinai, right, he opened a whole wing that is dedicated, it's kind of an interdisciplinary wing that is dedicated to gender-affirming health and surgical care for people. Unfortunately, this is very New York City based. There's a lack of doctors. There's a lack of these types of...
Guy works about 16 hours a day.
Exactly. And there's still like a 6 months waiting list.
Just for 3 months for a consultation.
Yeah. And I'm sure that, wards like that are hard to find anywhere else in the country. Doctors like him are hard to find anywhere else in the country. And it's a parallel story both of we see the lives of some of his patients and his own transformation as he became who he is and what he does.
He's an interesting guy. He wanted to be a musician, and he went to Juilliard.
And his parents
pressed him to go to medical school.
Yeah.
And he plays the bass like a cello.
Right.
It is so gorgeous, and it runs throughout his bass music. It's a very interesting man who wanted to be an artist. He became a different kind of an artist.
Yes, that's true, because what he does is artistry, and he actually kept revolutionizing the surgeries because many of them are still in the process of, they're still not very good, and there's room for improvement. But also how much he cares.
Oh, he cares so much.
He cares about his patients so much, and his realization that his surgeries may be plastic, but they save lives.
Yeah.
And sometimes they can't save lives. Sometimes people come to him.
Well, this is more than plastic.
Well, it's gender affirmation.
Yes,
so it's
more
both.
than
It's both the genitalia.
surgery.
It's genitalia.
Right,
It's top surgery. It's feminizing the facial structure. Right.
Or unless there's a few female to male.
Right. So
Yes.
it's all. Really, it's everything. He addresses all the issues, and his understanding that what he does can only get people so far. That there are, some of these people come to him. This is their life's dream, and they think that everything will be solved and resolved once they have the body that they needed.
More to life.
Yes, and it's really beautifully done, very touching, very raw. Some of the access,
but nothing graphic.
Nothing graphic, really. Not, you don't see any of the actual surgery, really, but you do get a really unprecedented, really, access to. I mean, these people let the crews come into their lives in some very vulnerable and very private moments.
My only complaint at all, and it isn't really a complaint, but I think it was obviously a choice. He is constantly walking down long halls in hospitals.
Yeah, looking for the right
the
room.
right door,
It became
the
kind of
right,
like maybe they thought that it was going to be a gag that would kind of lift the
Yes,
make
and
it a
I
little
think
funnier.
I think that it also showed how much ground he covers every day. But I think that they spent a little too much time doing it. It
Okay.
was like, okay, I've seen this now.
Okay.
You don't
But
have
it's
to
a
show
very
me again.
minimal criticism.
Yes. It's not even really a criticism.
Yeah.
It's just an observation. They didn't really need it.
So this is Born to Be, a documentary available now online, and the final documentary that we'll tell you about.
Well, I loved this documentary, and if you loved Mindhunter, you will love this. It's called Crazy Not Insane. It premieres on HBO.
Well, actually, it already premiered on HBO
yes.
November 18th.
November 18th.
So it's now available on HBO Max as well.
Max, right? Directed by Alex Gibney. Do we know if this is a man or a woman?
Yes, it is a man.
A man. All right.
Sorry to disappoint.
Yeah. Psychiatrist, her name is Dr. Dorothy Otnow Lewis, has dedicated her entire career to studying murderers. And she wrote several books, and she became one of the country's leading experts to testify in cases. And she wanted to know what makes people kill. She started off with the Nazis, which was very interesting, how people could do what they do. I think that we're beginning to see that ourselves, how things like this go. But anyway, she delves into the backgrounds, and it's not a new idea.
I think it
but
is.
the way she...
I think her ideas specifically are new. She comes up because, as opposed to Mindhunters,
Right.
Actually, if you're a Wentworth fan, this is more like what we're seeing with Joan
Yes.
Ferguson. She is the one who came up with this understanding
Of dissociative.
that many of those psychopaths, sociopaths, serial killers actually experience childhood trauma, probably repeated childhood
repeatedly,
trauma.
almost all of them. Now, this is not a new concept about some of them, but this is like each and every one of them.
Well, she finds that many of them have dissociative personality disorder, and she was mocked and laughed at and dismissed by experts all over, throughout most of her life. But she kept proving again and again that we see that. And now
She had great compassion.
exactly, she actually forms bonds with a lot of these people because some of these people come from such damaging backgrounds.
Terrible, horrifying backgrounds.
And what she says is, it's not that you don't need to punish these people. What they've done was horrendous. But you need to punish them in an appropriate way that would deal with their mental health issues. Not, especially, I think she pits execution as where do we draw the line. She also interviews somebody who is an executor.
An executioner, really fascinating.
Exactly, and what is the difference between him and the serial killers?
Exactly.
So it's a fascinating, fully rounded view of the system because many states they have executions and people cheer.
Not too many. Anymore.
Too many to me. Many people go and watch and cheer and have parties, and it's really, where do we draw the line to differentiate?
Of course, there's always the other side.
Right, but it is but it is an interesting understanding of
like a blood sport.
Yeah, and as opposed to
especially these people who are so damaged. Yes, of course, they can't be left out in society, but they can't be
and that's what she's
treated
saying, by the way,
like rabid dogs either.
And that's what she's saying. She's saying they should not be out in society. They are dangerous, but she really examines what happened. How did they perform the murder? Who were they when they performed the murder? What happened to them that made them... Because she really shows...
Yes, and she does. You see her doing lots of interviews.
And you see the interviews.
So fascinating.
The original interviews. She even interviewed Ted Bundy.
Yep. Now that is really mind-blowing.
Yeah. And she's a very, very interesting woman. And her work, I think, is very important.
I recommend it.
Oh yes, yes. It was
again, if you like these kinds of movies, TV shows, you will love this real life story.
Yeah, and you know what? When I was watching it, I was thinking, kudos to the Wentworth people for going down this path with Ferguson, because obviously they're much more in tune with recent science and understanding of serial killers.
Yes, and also they redeemed
yeah.
Ferguson.
Yeah. It was fascinating.
Yeah.
I really, really commend. And I love that it started with her childhood fascination with Nazis and how could people become Nazis so easily? How could a whole country be weaponized? Fascinating. So
Crazy, not insane, on HBO and HBO Max now.
we recommend it very
Highly.
highly. Okay, so you have lots of stuff to watch and listen to, and we will be back next week with
No
even more good
comedies,
stuff.
but nevertheless, all, what'd you say, hon?
No, and we'll be back next week with even more stuff. But yes, no comedies,
comedies,
really, no.
you know.
But some uplifting stuff and some very, very, interesting
very
stuff.
good. If you like good cinema, you will love these.
Thank you for joining us again. Please, please be safe.
Wear
Please don't
masks.
have big Thanksgiving dinners.
Don't have any Thanksgiving dinners.
I
Go out
agree.
for
Just
don't go
stay
out.
with your
Order
own
in
family
burgers
in
or,
your own home, or
salads.
do it on Zoom. Don't eat turkey. Wear your mask, and let's just get through this.
Let's get
get
this
through this
over
thing.
with.
Yeah.